Hello! Welcome to Changeling Cast, the podcast dedicated to reading and dissecting urban fantasy, paranormal, and speculative romance series. I'm your host Mara from the YouTube channel Books Like Whoa, and this season we are making our way through Nalini Singh's Psy-Changeling series. Of our celebration of the release of Storm Echo this week, and as a part of that celebration, today we are going to do a little season 1 recap. So this is going to be full spoilers for the macro plot of the Psy-Changeling first season. So this goes books 1, which is Slave to Sensation, through I decided to cut this off at Shards of Hope, which is book 14, and I will include Allegiance of Honor in my season 2 recap. The idea being that I know a lot of plot happens in these books, and it can be hard, at least for me, to remember everything that has come before. So this is a reference for myself, to be totally honest, but also for anyone else who would find it helpful to have a recap of the overall high-level view of what happens in each of the Psy-Changeling seasons. So today is season 1 in anticipation of Storm Echo, and we will also have a recap of Allegiance of Honor through Storm Echo up either tomorrow, the day after, not totally sure. But sit back. If you know nothing about the world of Psy-Changeling, I will refer you to my introduction episode to the first season of the Psy-Changeling podcast, and that gives you sort of a recap of kind of what the Psy are, what the Changeling are, sort of the world building. And this will pick up in Slave to Sensation, and I'm just going to tell it to you like it's a big old story. So get some popcorn, settle in, let's do this. So in Slave to Sensation, we pick up with the Psy-Net kind of on the brink of big changes. And those changes are precipitated by Sasha Duncan, who is the daughter of one of the rulers of the Psy-Net, Nikita Duncan. And she is in negotiation for an important business project with her mother's company and with a changeling pack called Dark River. And Dark River's alpha is Lucas Hunter, and he is a leopard changeling, and almost instantly they have a connection, which is precipitated by the fact that Sasha has a crumbling version of silence. It is not holding well. And really the first book is us getting the lay of the land of sort of the political comings and goings. There is another counselor on the ruling council called Enrique Santanto, who is a shady MFer. And by the end of the book, we find out that he is a serial murderer of changelings. And that is sort of the mystery plot that Lucas and Sasha are working on together. Who is abducting and killing these changeling women? It is Enrique. Sasha helps take down Enrique, and she and Lucas all the while are falling in love. She, however, needs to be in the Psy-Net to survive, so she thinks that this is really a doomed love affair, but she makes the decision anyway to kind of use the last shreds of her sanity and clarity to help take down Enrique. They are successful in doing that, and by initiating the mating bond, we find out that Psy can be pulled out of the Psy-Net and into a changeling pack's psychic connection, at least with the alpha of the pack. They can be connected through that and get the psychic feedback that they need. So Sasha is now in what she calls the Web of Stars, which is the Dark River psychic network between Lucas and his various lieutenants. Now, these various lieutenants are going to be important players throughout the series, and they are going to be the heroes and heroines of upcoming books. So they are all very important, but they have taken a blood oath to Lucas, and that is why they have this psychic bond that Sasha can now coexist in. So Sasha also basically discovers that she has a new ability that is thought to be a myth, non-existent, they're not totally sure, but she is a cardinal E. So a cardinal is the most powerful version of a Psy. She is a cardinal in the E designation, which is an empath. So that is her power. There's so many other things, but another notable item here from the first book is that we also find out that Dark River has a relatively new and still pretty fragile alliance with the neighboring pack to them in Northern California, which is the Snow Dancer clan. And the Snow Dancers are wolves run by, or the alpha is Hawk Snow, and he is the alpha. He has his own lieutenants who will also be major players in books to come. Notably, his pack has also taken in some other Psy refugees, the Lorens, who were set for reconditioning / termination by the Psy Council, so they faked their death, and it is two brothers, one of their son and daughter, or one of their daughters, I guess, and then their niece and nephew. So they have 5 Psy who are living amongst the wolves in secret, and that is where we kind of leave the world at the beginning of the first book. So in the second book, we are following Faith Nightstar, who is another Psy. She is what is called an F designation, which stands for Foresight, and she is a part of the Nightstar clan, which is the most powerful Foresight clan in the Psynet. And because of what has happened with Sasha, Faith basically is having a lot of disturbing visions that are making her worried about the future. So she decides to go to Sasha, even though it's forbidden, and get more information about her visions. In the course of that, she meets a sentinel. Sorry, I've been calling them lieutenants, but in the leopards, they are sentinels. A sentinel named Vaughn, and they begin to fall in love. And really the conflict in this one is her choosing to leave the Psynet for him. Faith is, because of how powerful she is being considered for the Psy Council alongside another young hotshot up-and-comer named Caleb Krychek, as well as an MPsy named Gia. The council is basically aware that they've not been monitoring violent Psys well enough in the Psynet, case in point, Enrique, and they want a more connected person on the council with the Netmind. Now, the Netmind is basically a neo-sentience that emerges from a psychic network. So it is its own being that arises from the collective psychic presences of everyone in the psychic network. So that is the Psynet, not the Psynet. For the Psynet, we have the Netmind. And basically, it is known that F designation, M designation, and TK designation, which is Caleb, are best able to connect with the Netmind, so it is thought that it would be prudent to bring one of them on board. In the course of this book, we also discover the presence of what is called the Dark Mind, and this is the twin sentience from the Netmind, but it is the embodiment of all of the dark and violent impulses of the psychic presences within the Psynet, and the Dark Mind is part of what is stirring up the violence that is happening increasingly in the Psynet. But Faith does have a connection with the Netmind, and it is discovered that even after she leaves to go be with Vaughn from the Psynet, she drops out of it and joins the Web of Stars. She's actually still able to talk to the Netmind, even though she is not in the Psynet anymore. So, we also, in that second book, have the introduction of the concept of the Arrows, which are controlled by Ming Laban. The Arrows are a cadre of elite Psy soldiers who are chosen for the violent proclivities of their particular gifting. They are often children who are basically too dangerous to be raised in the context of a normal Psy family, and so they are forfeited to the Arrow Squad. The Arrow Squad has been attempted to be controlled in the past via a drug called Jax, but that did not go as expected, so they, for the most part, are no longer controlled by that. As we move into book 3, we join the Snowdancer pack, and we are following one of the Lauren members of that family, the Psy family who defected, Judd Lauren, who is a former Arrow. And this is his love story with the last victim of Enrique Santanto, who they were able to save, Brenna Kincaid. And they have their love story, and really this is mostly about how a Psy who has already left the Psy-Net can have a love story and can have a relationship with someone even if they still need parts of silence to be in control of their powers. So basically, Judd figures out how to deconstruct parts of silence that are hurtful to him, while still being able to keep the parts that are helpful for him to maintain control over his ability, which is a specific kind of TK power called a TK cell, where he can destroy or knit back together things at a cellular level. In the course of this book, Judd also becomes the first Psy lieutenant of the Snowdancer tribe, clan, and we also are introduced to the Ghost, who is a rebel in the Psy-Net trying to thwart the various goings-on of the Psy Council, including a new implant called Protocol 1, which is a type of experimental hive mind that the Psy Council has been working on, which basically would allow there to be sort of a queen bee class and a worker bee class. The initial test subjects of that are Shoshana and Henry Scott as the queen bees, and then they have 8 other people. But over the course of this book, the initial research and implant for that protocol are destroyed. As a part of getting introduced to the Ghost, we are also introduced to a character called Father Perez, who is a human reformed Catholic priest who is helping both Judd and the Ghost with their subterfuge of the Psy-Net. Additionally, we have the Psy Council trying to strike back at the Changelings because of the events of the last 2 books, but they ultimately fail. And from all of that attempt, we find out how much the Psys have been interfering with Changeling politics. For example, they influence a pack of hyenas to attack the Snowdancers, and really, we find out that they've been much more involved than we may have previously guessed. We get introduced to a couple of other significant characters who will be important for this sort of Protocol 1 arc, which are, is in books 3, 4, 5, and 7. We see Zizen for the first time, who is an older, respected sort of statesman of the Psy-Net, who is working with the rebels. Shaya Eleni is the head scientist of Protocol 1, but we will find out more later that she is not so much doing that of her own free will. And we also see Silver Mercant as the assistant to Caleb Krychek, who will be an important character later on. So that is book 3. Then we get into book 4, which is a romance between a human, well, at least she appears to be mostly human, named Talon, and one of the Dark River Sentinels named Clay. Tally is a social worker for the Shine Foundation. She and Clay knew each other as children, but because of extreme tragedy, they were separated and he thought she was dead. But basically she goes to Clay because children from the Shine Foundation are being abducted off the streets and either go totally missing or are later found murdered, with their brains having been essentially tampered with. We learn that Dev Santos is the head of the Shine Foundation, and what we come to find out is that the Shine Foundation is an organization that takes care of the forgotten and what is called the Shadow Net. So the Forgotten are descendants of the Psy who decided to leave the Psy-Net when silence was implemented, and over time they have become, their genes have become more diluted and they have blended into normal life, but they often still need some kind of support, including Tally, who has a very small need for for psychic biofeedback. And so she is able to get that once she mates with Clay and gets into the web of stars. We also have the introduction of Max Shannon, who is introduced to us as a local enforcement agent in San Francisco who has been working with the Shine Foundation to find the kids who have been lost or mutilated. We discover that they are being stolen by the Psy for research on Protocol 1. And this is really where we find out that between what we know about the Psy and the Psy-Net and the Forgotten and the Shadow Net, that really part of the issues that the Psy are now having vis-a-vis psychosis is because they have very strict, almost sort of like pure breed type designations, versus in the Shadow Net, where there's a lot more commingling of different DNA, so from the Psy, from humans, from changelings. There's a lot of different kinds of psychic abilities that emerge. And so we kind of find out that as a part of that plot. We also, in this book, have Caleb Krychek emerging as sort of the de facto leader of the Psy Council once Marshall is assassinated. Marshall Pax, I forget his name. His son is Pax Marshall. So yeah, whatever that guy's first name is. He's assassinated, which is orchestrated by the Ghost. And as a result, Anthony Krychek, who is the head of the Night Star clan that Faith comes from, ends up joining the council. And we have had indications in previous books that he is sympathetic to, if not outright a part of the rebellion or general pushback against the norm in the Psy-Net. So as we continue on here, there's a general sense of chaos that is growing in the Psy-Net, but as the chaos in the Psy-Net grows, there's also increasing unification with the changelings. So we see that the Dark River and Snow Dancer alliance is growing stronger. Mercy from Dark River and Riley from the Snow Dancer crew are the sort of liaison points. They're antagonistic towards each other, but they are working together. And the Rats formally become allies with Dark River. So they are sort of their eyes on the ground in San Francisco. So by the time we get to the 5th book, Ashaya Elaine is trying to get out of the Psy-Net, and she helped the leopards in the 4th book get some of the children that they were looking for back, and as an exchange, they promised to get her son out of the Psy-Net, who is being held hostage so that she will comply with continuing to work on Protocol 1, even though she hates it. Once she gets confirmation that he is out, she orchestrates a plan to also get out. And then she is helped by Anthony Krychek with one of his teleporters who is sympathetic to the rebellion, who is named Vasek. We will find out that Vasek is a natural teleporter who is one of the main players in the Arrows. He is the right hand of the leader of the Arrows. And we also find out about Amara, who is Ashaya's twin. And we find out that they essentially have a kind of dual consciousness that mirrors the Dark Mind and the Net Mind. So the Dark Mind and Net Mind have a particular connection with Ashaya and Amara. Ashaya, as a part of her getting out of the Psy-Net, ends up exposing what is being done with Protocol 1 for the Hive Mind implant. And she also reveals this virus that has been in development that has been uber secret. So if Protocol 1 is secret, Omega is even more secret. And basically it is a virus that would control the fertility, ideally of the Psy, but realistically it could also impact the humans and the changelings as well. So with that, kind of the value of killing Ashaya goes down for the Psy-Net, or for the Psy Council, but the Human Alliance, which is the kind of governing, not governing body of the humans, but the organization dedicated to trying to increase human autonomy on the world stage, they decide, because of the Omega aspect, they want to kill Ashaya in case she knows how to create it, because they don't want it to be released. They fail in that attempt. And I should say that Henry before this has sent an assassin, Henry Scott has sent an assassin for Ashaya, and as a part of that, Amara finds out that Ashaya is still alive. She gets pulled into the web of stars when Ashaya goes in, but because of that failed attempt, everybody kind of slaps Henry Scott on the wrist in the Psy Council, and they agree that they're not going to continue to pursue Ashaya in terms of trying to kill her. But Henry Scott also in this book gets approached by an organization called Pure Psy, which is an extremist group that wants to have even more tightly enforced silence and wants zero interaction between the different races. The way that we find out that this is going around not just to Henry is that Silver Mercant also gets an invite, but on behalf of the Mercants lets Caleb Krychek know, which is sort of their first, overture to him to maybe having some kind of more direct alliance. So we also then progress a little bit more in this overall protocol arc, though this is a little bit of a detour in book 6. This is dominated, I would say, by the romance between Mercy and Riley, the two different liaison points between the Snowdancer and Dark River Pack. This is a very significant kind of relationship that develops because by bringing these two different blood oaths together, they are really solidifying the connection permanently between these two packs. There's also ongoing shenanigans by the Human Alliance, including them trying to abducting a local lynx scientist as a part of their kind of ongoing attempt to assert dominance. But we find out that there's sort of this shadow, quote-unquote, bad part of the Human Alliance. Coming out of that, Bowen Knight emerges as the new leader of the Human Alliance, and he has done some sus stuff in the past, but we mostly think of him as a pretty good guy. We also find out that Anthony Caracas' team finds out that there are these Psys who are being given a compulsion to kill people very publicly, and that is all tracing back to Henry Scott as a part of the Pure Psy effort. We also find out that Sienna Lauren, who is she's now about, I think, 17 or 18, she is one of the Laurens who came out and has been living with the Snowdancer. We discovered that she does have a need for silence because she has a very dangerous mystery designation. She is made a soldier within the Snowdancer hierarchy, but she ends up going to live with Dark River because since the first book, she has had sort of a push-pull with the alpha of Snowdancer, Hawk Snow, and she is still very young, so the tension there cannot be realized, and therefore it is decided it would be best for her to stay with the leopards until she gets better control over her powers. In book 7, this is sort of the last of the Protocol 1 books, and we have Katya, who was Ashaya Alani's right-hand, assistant as a scientist. She was abducted and believed dead, but it turns out that she has been being tortured for 5 months by Ming Laban, and she is delivered to Dev Santos, the head of the Shine Foundation, as a sleeper assassin. While she was imprisoned, she overheard Ming talking about a station-wide massacre in Sunshine, Alaska, which is a Psy outpost, and they discover that this is an outbreak of madness, essentially because of a poisonous illness that is seeping throughout the Psynet. And there is a final confrontation between Katya and her, newfound love Dev and Ming. She is able to hit him, but ultimately she does not kill him. However, she is being cut off from the Psynet. That is a part of what Ming did to her, and she is effectively dying. However, one of the forgotten kids, so one of the kids in the Shine Foundation, Noor, who was adopted by Clay and Tally in the 4th book, along with the Psy child Keenan, who is Ashaya's son. If you'll remember, he was being held captive a few books ago. It we determine from this that Noor and Keenan have this ability to join their powers to essentially heal Katya's mind. Noor has an unknown weaving capability that she amplifies and pairs with Keenan's telepathy. And it is suggested that this is possible because Keenan is the son of Ashayan and Amara, who have that dual consciousness. So he has this amplification ability that is similar to a twin capability. So, through all of this, there's an alliance that is forged between the Forgotten and Dark River / Snowdancer because Judd Lauren is helping one of the Forgotten kids with his TK cell ability. And this is also, a connection is made between Noor, this TK cell child, and Judd as all having similar sort of weaving abilities. And then we also get introduced to Adden, who is Vasik's best friend and the head of the Arrows, and they are plotting to overthrow Ming as their overseer because he has been killing arrows, so they're trying to decide when the right time to strike out at him would be. So as a result of this, Max Shannon, the enforcement agent, ends up going to work for Nikita. In the course of his duties, he encounters Sophia Russo, who is a minor anchor, we discover, who is woven directly into the net. And she is basically a fusion point between where the net mind and dark mind can meet. And in her, they can reunite and briefly kind of heal. So she is a burnt out J Psy, which is a justice Psy. And she and Max end up having a relationship while they try to protect Nikita from being assassinated. That assassination attempt is ultimately tracked back to Pure Psy, which is Henry Scott again. And he's trying to kill Nikita because of how close her connections are becoming to the changelings. And that is obviously at odds with the goals of Pure Psy. Nikita and Anthony have a first kind of explicit alliance that is formed on the basis of the interest in their kids. This is the first time that we have a clear indication that Nikita is truly ride or die for Sasha, and for Sasha's baby, who is coming into the picture, who is Naya. So this is the first true Psy and Changeling child. And there ends up being a showdown at the Psy Council where it is clear that it is Nikita, Anthony, and Caleb versus Henry and Shoshana Scott, as well as Tatiana. And then Ming appears to be neutral, maybe leaning more towards Nikita, Anthony, and Caleb, but is ultimately ambivalent. We also get confirmation that Hawk is into Sienna, but that he lost the person he believes to be his mate as a child, so he doesn't want to pursue her, and also she is so young that he is reticent to pursue her. But coming into book 9, we get indications from the different people within both packs that they all see that Sienna is ready for Hawk to pursue her, and that Hawk really should be pursuing her. So books 9, 10, and 11 are kind of a mini plot arc where Henry Scott is fully coming into his own as the big bad, trying to make Pure Psy happen at all costs. So in book 9, we discover that Psy are coming on to Snowdancer land, and they are bearing unfamiliar devices that end up being treacherous, to say the least. We also find out that they are making inroads directly to Snowdancer members and humans, basically trying to say, like, hey, you don't want other races in your mixing with you either, right? Like, we should all just stay to ourselves. Henry specifically wants to try to kill Lucas and Hawk, and in the 9th book, we have our first, like, true battle between Pure Psy and the Changelings, and in the course of that, Drew, who is Riley's little brother and Brenna's big brother, and Indy's mate, that is the romance in book 9, he ends up taking a bullet for Hawk. He does survive, but that is sort of really the first true battle between the different forces and the tension that has been building up for a while. At the end of this book, Nikita and Anthony come directly on to Snowdancer land to propose an alliance between Dark River, Snowdancer, Nikita, and Anthony against Henry. They think that Caleb is with them, but they're just trying to be sure because you can never totally tell where Caleb stands. Nikita comes out and says that she doesn't think silence should continue, and that she had basically only been a supporter of it from political expedience rather than from conviction. We also in this book have an alliance between the Snowdancer pack and a wing of falcons from Arizona. So we also have the Ghost helping Judd find what they think is a book on a mystery designation called X, but when they retrieve this book, it turns out that it's actually Alice Eldridge, who was an expert who had previously written a book on the E designation that Nikita had paid a bunch of money to acquire for Sasha so she could learn more about her gifting. Alice was a researcher in the 1970s who apparently was put essentially in suspended animation. And she is an expert. She's potentially has more information than anyone else about these designations that have gone extinct, including the E and X designations. And when asked about what to do for an X designation, she says to, quote, find the valve. So coming into book 10, we've got a series of battles ensuing, and really this is also the book where Hawk and Sienna are getting together. Sienna is taking a bigger role in kind of the overall Snowdancer politics, and she observes that the tactics that Pure Psy are using are from Ming Laban, which suggests that he may actually be helping Henry Scott and Pure Psy. And in this book, Sienna spends a lot of time kind of proving her mettle as a soldier, including a covert op to destroy a Pure Psy encampment in South America. And in this book, we find out that the mystery designation that Sienna has is in fact the X designation. And she is the oldest known living X. They usually die at age 6 or 7. And essentially they have this, you can almost think of them as sort of like cold fire that is a nuclear bomb. She potentially could, destroy a continent depending on how much power got built up behind her. And throughout the book, she keeps almost hitting a breaking point. Her and Hawk ultimately do kind of have like an informal commitment to each other, sort of like marriage type relationship. But afterwards, she thinks she is about to hit her breaking point. And right then is when a huge strike from Pure Psy is happening across Northern California. So in San Francisco, against the Dark River Pack, against Nikita and Anthony's positions, and against Snowdancer. So the Pure Psy come on to Snowdancer land, and the battle is ensuing, but eventually the Pure Psy do have a supersonic weapon that disables the wolves by paralyzing them through their hearing. Right when Sienna thinks she is about to go critical, so she focuses all of her energy against the Pure Psy forces. She goes into Hawk's mind to pull him and all the Snowdancers and Dark River Leopards into her shields, and she is able to destroy the Pure Psy, but not any of the changelings. And in the course of this, Hawk initiates the mating bond. They think she is about to finally kind of hit her final implosion. So they run into a lake, but instead, the Lauren net, which she is obviously a member of, gets pulled fully into the Snowdancer equivalent of the Web of Stars. And it turns out that Walker, her uncle, and a former trainer of the Arrows, and someone who is a telepath with very specific flexibility in his capabilities, he has a specific quirk that has developed which serves as a valve, which is what Alice was talking about, and all of the energy from Sienna is kind of blasted through the Web of Stars and the Lauren net, and everybody gets this huge jolt of energy, including Mercy and Riley, who use that energy to vigorously couple and end up conceiving what are referred to as the pup cubs. So these are the first children between Dark River and Snowdancer that will essentially ensure the future of their packs being together. So, in the wake of that battle, all the different sides are regrouping. There is a group of changelings that are all water-based changeling called Black Sea, which want to ally with Snowdancer and Dark River. We come to find out because someone is abducting their members for reason unknown, and they are led by, what is her name? Mayenne Levesque, I believe, is the alpha of that pack. We have Hawk and Sienna's mating ceremony in book 11, which precipitates Riaz and Adria getting together, who are the couple in book 11. And the big kind of milestone here is that it's two non-fated changeling mates who decide to be together without having a full fated mate bond. In that book as well, Ming tries, now that he knows that Sienna's alive, because the whole reason the Lorens dropped out was to save Sienna and Judd in particular from extermination, and she was a particular pet of Ming Laban. Now that he knows that she's still alive and he's seen what she can do, he tries to put the Protocol 1 implant into her. When he fails to do that, he tries to kill her. He obviously gets shut down. We also find out that Tatiana has tried to kill Bowen from the Human Alliance, but she did not know that he had an experimental chip in his brain that would block Psy control of human minds. The Human Alliance has been developing this as an option for humans who do not want to be interfered with by nefarious Psy. And we also find out that she was behind all of the bad Human Alliance stuff that was happening all the way back in book 5. We also find out that the Human Alliance has been cooperating with Arrows, who have dropped out of the Psy-Net and are on the run, who are led by Zara, who is another one of Aiden's right-hand people. There's an investigation of deaths of a bunch of anchors, which is really bad because the anchors are what keep the Psy-Net sort of structural integrity whole. And we find out that Sienna failed to actually kill Henry Scott in the last book in that battle. Caleb and Vasek discuss forming an alliance. The Arrows are looking to move away from Ming and kind of come under Caleb's sphere. And they agree that they're not going to kill Ming yet because his death could seriously compromise the integrity of the Psy-Net. Caleb is also monitoring sort of a canary in the coal mine kind of patient who seems to have a severe sickness that is caused by the Psy-Net. It almost looks like tar on their psychic presence. And he also formally allies with the Mercants, so that is Silver Mercant's family. We also find out at the end of book 11 that Caleb has finally found the thing that he has been looking for since like book 3, and that is Sahara Nightstar, who is a long-lost Nightstar member who was abducted and tortured by Enrique, and ultimately given over to Tatiana to try to, Tatiana wants to try to control her. When Caleb finds Sahara, he rescues her and he imprisons Tatiana, and as punishment, Tatiana will be kept in a bunker that nobody can find for at least 7 years. We find out also that Caleb is a dual cardinal who has both cardinal abilities in telepathy and telekinesis. He was also Enrique's protege and biological son, but Enrique knew that Caleb was falling in love with and getting close to Sahara, so he allowed them to get close and toy with them until he decided to break them up because he found out of Sahara's skill set, which is that she has both backsight, so a sort of F-Psi capability, but she also has the ability to take someone's power fully over if she touches them. So he tried to torture her into giving in to him controlling that power, but she resisted and Caleb helped her get away. But ultimately he gave her over to Tatiana. To protect herself from Tatiana, she built a mind labyrinth that only Caleb's presence could unlock. So now that she has been unlocked, that Caleb has found her, Caleb basically is the most powerful, where we understand now he truly is the most powerful person in the Psy-Net, and he will protect the Psy-Net because Sahara is in it. We also learn that there's sort of a kill switch on him because Sahara could take his power over at any time, so he can't go too wild. And Caleb reveals to Sahara that he has been the ghost the whole time. And he very succinctly explains that he would never have allowed someone so powerful to continue to live. And the whole reason he has been trying to gain power is so that he could create a world that was safe for Sahara. Caleb and Vasek from the Arrows are quickly getting the reputation of being heroes because they keep saving people from the last attacks of the remnants of Pure Psy. Some people think that he is behind Pure Psy until he issues a death on sight order for Pure Psy. Ming does try to assassinate Caleb because of his writing status, and this is further confirmation that he's been supplying Pure Psy. He fails, and he is a nuisance and a recurring pest, but he is clearly no longer the major player of the Psy-Net. Caleb is essentially the de facto ruler of the Psy-Net, and he sends out an edict saying that silence is no longer going to be enforced. So silence has fallen, but the Psy-Net is falling apart, and as we look on, this test subject who was sort of the canary in the coal mine dies. So we continue to agree that we're not going to kill Ming Laban because it would be too disruptive given how fragile the state of the Psy-Net is. And by the end of the 12th book, we have Caleb as the most raw, powerful person in the world, followed by Sienna. He actually thought about killing Sienna, but he realized that she doesn't care about what he cares about, and he is good friends with Judd, so he wouldn't do that. But basically, Caleb and Sienna are the two biggest powers left on the playing board. Also, the Netmind has shown Caleb something with empaths that will help them heal the net. So in book 13, the Arrows and Caleb decide to put 10 E's in a clean area that has not been infected by this virus that the test patient died of. This is an area between Snowdancer and Dark River, and they want to see if they can keep that infection at bay. Meanwhile, there's a series of massive violent events erupting as the Psy-Net itself continues to disintegrate. Caleb and the Arrows keep trying to control when they have an outbreak, and it's sort of almost like a zombie infestation where a bunch of Psy will just simultaneously go mad and start attacking people. One of these E's that they're using to try to test the solution is Ivy Jane, and she and Vasek quickly form a bond, and the 13th book has their love story. Vasek had kind of given up on life and was sort of in despair until he found Ivy. He almost dies from a failed body implant that he had received, but a solution is eventually found. Ming also tries and fails to inject Vasek with Jax to get him back under his control because it is very inconvenient not having a teleporter at his disposal. As the book progresses, we have the medical E's who are trying to understand more about the virus, and there's also kind of an overall pattern analysis by Sahara and Ivy, and they realize that if you have a connection to an E, if you are in the Psy-Net, it prevents you from getting this sickness. We also have sort of quote-unquote racist attacks against E's who are suspicious. These are Psy who are suspicious of E's because of their ability to influence people's moods, etc. And eventually the Netmind, Ivy is able to make contact with the Netmind, and it shows Ivy what is called the honeycomb. And really, this is the interconnected bonds, psychic bonds that exist between E's and the people in their lives, and that is what helps keep people from getting sick. So as more people connect with E's, the breakouts of these violent events reduce and reduce. And by the end of the 13th book, we are moving towards a new ruling structure called the Ruling Coalition that has different representatives from different factions, and Ivy is the representative for what I think of as sort of the E Union. In this book, we also have Silver Mercant officially deputized to head up the Mnet, which is an emergency cross-race relief organization that is able to mobilize quickly and help people if there are mass violent or natural disaster events. At the end of the book, Ivy and Vasek are getting married, and it basically is a big signal of the new communal bond of the Arrows now that they are out from under the thumb of these different groups. They are starting to create their own encampments, their own headquarters, and their own safe spaces for the Arrows. And they are also starting to, it is basically discovered that the E's are the people who are, they most naturally feel safe with. So there are a number of romances budding between the E's and the arrows. And Judd is very excited to share basically the sex manual that he developed with Vasek. And he is just overjoyed that the arrows are finally in a position where they get to have their own lives and have their own happy lives apart from the things that they're asked to do on behalf of the Psy. So then coming into the 14th book, we are starting to wrap up season 1. So in the wake of Silence Falling, we have a new bad guy entity emerging, which is called the Consortium. The Consortium is run by a mysterious architect whose identity we do not know, and it is trying to assert themselves on a few different fronts. Basically, initially at least, it's presenting itself as wanting chaos because it gives them opportunities to make money off of the chaos. So they do a few things in the 14th book. They abduct Aiden and Zara to try to gain control over the arrows. It is discovered that they are the ones abducting and torturing the Black Sea missing members and making them into operatives for their different missions. And they also are successful in injuring Nikita. So they are trying to kill the various members of the ruling coalition. They fail in that initial kind of inciting incident with Aiden and Zara, but in the course of escaping, Aiden and Zara happen upon a group of leopards in the Appalachians who they form a bond with, and they get inspiration from them about how they can create a community where they can raise the arrow children who are dangerous and have dangerous abilities, but need to be taught how to control their power in the context of a community that still loves them and treats them with care. And we also have Aiden. We've kind of not known what how he is able to be the head of the arrows because he doesn't appear to have any specific gigantic skill, but it turns out that his power is basically what is called being a mirror. It's similar to some of the capabilities that Walker Lauren has, but on a different level, and basically he can take someone's power briefly and use it for himself, and when the power returns to them, they have essentially a huge amplification of the power that they had. So if they were not a cardinal, but like maybe a 8.5 or something, they're able to be a full-on cardinal briefly. So that is his power. And at the very end of the book, we have the creation of what is called the Trinity Accord, which is an alliance between a bunch of different entities across Psy, human, and changelings, where they are all going to work for each other's mutual aid and mutual benefit, which will be, better politically, better economically. It's sort of like a united world order. And basically that's where the 14th book ends, is the creation of that accord. And the next season of Psy-Changeling is called Psy-Changeling Trinity, which is them trying to implement the Trinity Accord. So that is my recap of the first 14 books. Hopefully we hit most of the high points. I know I left things out because a lot of things happen in those books, but I hope that this was a helpful refresher. And we will do this same thing for season 2, including Storm Echo. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to leave a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me at Books Like Whoa across YouTube, Twitter, Goodreads, Instagram, TikTok, all those things. And I will talk to you very soon for a little bit more bonus content. Hope you're doing well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye! Oh, hello! Welcome to Changeling Cast, the podcast dedicated to reading and dissecting urban fantasy, paranormal, and speculative romance series. I'm your host Mara from the YouTube channel Books Like Whoa, and this season we are making our way through Nalini Singh's Psy-Changeling series. Warning here that we are going to talk fully about who the ghost is and all of the things that give us hints about the ghost leading up to his identity being fully revealed. So, if you do not know who the ghost is, don't listen to this. This is only Easter eggs up through where we get the reveal of the ghost. And I am back for a few bonus episodes this week, guys. I am so excited for the release of Storm Echo, and I thought the best way to celebrate would be to give you guys a little bit of bonus content on top of your normal, daily Psy-Changeling, not daily, what was it, bi-weekly Psy-Changeling helping. Since we are fully caught up, I thought this might be a fun way to celebrate that happening. So look forward to, today we are doing some Easter egg spoilers for The Ghost, and then I'm going to do a season 1 recap, and then I'm going to do a season 2 recap through Storm Echo, so including Storm Echo. So today we're going to do some ghost Easter eggs. Now, I don't know that this is going to be super long, but I went back through and listened to all of my episodes. Yes, I had to listen to myself for a very long time. You can feel sorry for me appropriately, but these are the notes that I took at the time, so I am passing that on to you guys. So, the first Easter egg is in Stroke of Enticement. Stroke of Enticement, and that is the story of Annie and Zach getting together, and we find out that Annie's backstory is that when she was a little girl, she was in a train accident, her leg was crushed by the train, and she was only saved from death by a TK little boy teleporting in, moving the train off of her so that she could be moved and survive. And that little boy was Caleb. So that is the first little Easter egg of Caleb, where he shows up, and eventually we see him and Sahara bonding with Annie and Zach and their son, whose middle name is Caleb, after him. It's very sweet. So that's the first Easter egg. In book 2, which is Visions of Heat, we find out that Sahara disappeared several years before, and that Caleb is on the side council. So then in Caressed by Ice, this is really where we start getting the groundwork for the Easter eggs on Caleb and the ghost being the same person. So Caleb gets his first point of view, so it's the first time we get a POV chapter from him. The ghost gets introduced, and in this book, his main kind of subplot is that he is trying to destroy the lab where Protocol 1 is being created. To be destroyed. He's getting rid of Protocol 1, so we know that for whatever reason he's against Protocol 1. Faith Nightstar foresees that the ghost is going to be very important in the future to Dark River. And let's see what else. We also have this establishment of the relationship between Judd and Father Perez, really the establishment of a friendship there. And I just noted, this isn't explicitly said, but when I was reading through the first time, I inferred from this book onwards that the ghost had to either be a teleporter or that he had access to a teleporter because of the way that he shows up places. So I think that is a little hint. Then in book 4, which is Mine to Possess, Caleb becomes the unofficial head of the council. He is seizing that power. Also, the ghost is the one who arranges for Marshall's assassination, which is what allows Caleb to take power and to kind of fill that void of power within the Psy Council. In book 5, which is Hostage to Pleasure, the ghost is explicitly stated to be against Pure Psy and against Protocol 1, so this is getting more hints at sort of where his political leanings are. And then in book 6, which is Branded by Fire, guys, I'm so impressed that I'm remembering the names of all these books without it being said explicitly. In Branded by Fire, Caleb is planning, so we're in his point of view, and we find out that he truly is planning on fully taking over the Psy Council, that he wants to have that power, and it is basically what we can infer from it is that he has a specific aim of taking over the Psy Council, that he has a reason why he needs it. And we also find out that he has been caretaking for the house that he lives in for somebody who is not around, and that he is looking for someone. So we also find out that he has made alliances with the bears and the wolf packs in the area because he wants to make sure that that area is secure. And then additionally, the ghost has a significant conversation with Judd about silence. Basically, he comes out and explicitly says that he wants silence to end. But because of the events in book 6, he's kind of wondering if silence might be necessary. And he and Judd talk that through, and Judd basically says, like, hey, silence shouldn't be enforced on anyone, but some people do need elements of it, himself included, right? So we will take the lessons, we the Psy will take the lessons of silence forward with us. So in terms of where the ghost / Caleb end up on that issue, I think that was a significant conversation. In book 8, Caleb finds the first clue, or sort of the first like hot trail on what he has been looking for. In book 11, the ghost observes Hawk and Sienna in their mating ceremony, and it's heavily implied that he has someone that he would like to have that kind of relationship with. And at the end of book 11, Caleb officially finds what he is looking for. And then book 12, obviously, we find out the full plot. And I think Caleb very succinctly points out to Sahara that of course he had to be the ghost, because if he wasn't, he would not have allowed the ghost to live that long. So those were the little Easter eggs and nuggets that I found on my reread. I'm sure there are plenty more, but those were the ones that I noted. And again, all hail Nalini Singh. She is great at planting seeds and then paying them off. She is good at the long game. So that is today's little bonus episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I forget the exact timing of all these episodes, but I think you will see me again tomorrow to give you a macro plot recap of the first season of Psy-Changeling, which is books 1 through 14. So hopefully that will help refresh everyone's memory coming into Storm Echo of significant things that happened there. And so I will see you tomorrow? ? I will see you soon. Bye! Oh, hello! Welcome to Changeling Cast, the podcast dedicated to reading and dissecting urban fantasy, paranormal, and speculative romance series. I'm your host, Mara, from the YouTube channel Books Like Woe, and this season we are making our way through Nalini Singh's Psy-Changeling series. We are picking up with our recap of Psy-Changeling Trinity, which is season 2 of the series. So we're going to start with a little reading of the Trinity Accord announcement, because I think that is a good summation of sort of the transition between seasons. So at the end of Shards of Hope, here is the news release. An unexpected new cooperation agreement, the Trinity Accord, has been negotiated and agreed upon between major elements of all 3 races. The aims of this agreement are to foster and maintain stability, both in world markets and for the personal safety of individuals. It has also been termed the first step toward creating a permanent United Earth Federation. The Trinity Accord allows for the rapid sharing of data across signatory groups and for the formation of mixed teams to deal with issues that affect more than one race. It is, however, more than an emergency network such as that managed by Silver Mercant. According to the papers released to the Beacon, Silver Mercant's network falls under the much wider umbrella of this Proto-Federation agreement. When asked for comment, Nikita Duncan, member of the ruling coalition, had this to say. The Trinity Accord isn't only a political agreement, but one that opens up economic opportunities for the signatories by breaking down the walls that previously hindered smooth and fast communication. Nikita Duncan's interpretation of the Trinity Accord is one that is popular among the larger Psy families polled for this article. All came out in strong support of the ruling coalition for opening up new avenues of business, as well as stabilizing the economic climate. To check the efficacy of the cooperation agreement, the Beacon reached out to the listed liaisons for comment from a number of other parties. And let's see here. What else? Okay, we get one from Hawk saying that it's not a magic bullet, but that if everybody pulls their weight, it will work. Bowen Knight, leader of the Human Alliance, says that it's on probation to see if it will work. Caleb Krychek says that only idiots or those with blinkered vision will oppose it. And let's see, who are the signatories? At the time of press, the signatories to the Trinity Accord were as follows: the ruling coalition, the Arrow Squad, the Empathetic Collective, over 100 predatory and non-predatory changeling packs, including Snowdancer Wolves, Dark River Leopards, Black Sea Changelings, Stonewater Bears, Black Edge Wolves, Sungrass Grazers, the Ice Ridge Foxes, Windhaven Falcons, all the people, so many. The Human Alliance, the Shine Foundation, Hope Light, a nonpartisan humanitarian organization, and for the first time in history, the Arrow Squad responded to comment via Aiden Kai and kind of affirmed their support of it. So that is the kind of official Trinity Accord agreement. And so then cut to what happens in Allegiance of Honor. There's a lot of sort of transition stuff here. It's technically a part of season 1, but I included it in season 2 because I think it's important context. So first of all, Naya Hunter has become the physical symbol of the new world with the different races intermingling. So the consortium is looking to kidnap Naya in order to use her to control Lucas and Sasha if she survives the kidnapping attempt. So basically there's a lot of focus on Naya. Sky Elm, which is an ocelot pack in Texas, were the group who funded the kidnapping for the consortium. So basically we find out that the alpha of that pack was really bitter at Lucas for supporting Psy after an outbreak of Psy when they were going mad in books 13 and 14, killed his wife and child. Lucas ends up having to kill the alpha because of his participation with the consortium, but the remaining 2 healers, 2 cubs, and 2 junior dominants come into Dark River, legally dissolving that pack. Ivan Mercant, who is a member of the Mercant family, was there the day of the attack, and he found one junior healer named Lay alive, but she is not included in the pack when they come to Dark River. Lucas and Sasha decide to have Nikita meet Naya to help cement that bond, and from that it's really clear how much she cares about Sasha and Naya, and she gives Sasha a lot of advice about parenting a side child. And also Nikita and Anthony are officially kind of just seen as being together by the other characters from this point onwards. So then Black Sea also has another pack member abducted. Vasek and Zara help track Layla, the missing member, down with the help of Tanique Gray, who is the half-brother of Faith, and he has a kind of specialized backsight. They also get help from a member of the Human Alliance who sees Layla when it looks like she's basically being trafficked by the consortium. So they are able to save her. We also find out, speaking of the Human Alliance, that Bowen Knight, who, if you will recall, got an implant to help him ward off psychic attack, that implant is failing quickly, and if they do not find a solution to how to fix that implant, he is going to die, along with his entire kind of leadership cadre. In this book, Zizin passes away, which was sort of he was kind of a symbol of the generation of Psy who fought silence even after they were subjected to it. So it's sort of a marking of the old guard going out. Father Perez finds his long-lost love in South America, who he thought was killed in a Psy attack. And in this book, we really have a cementing of the ongoing friendship between himself, Caleb, and Judd. And Caleb is also formally adopted by Ina Mercant into their family. So Caleb has some true, meaningful bonds that are getting cemented. He is still, however, finding disintegrating parts of the Psy-Net, and the Netmind and Darkmind can't really tell him why it's still disintegrating. Ultimately, though, they discover that there are these small, healthy patches around Sophia Russo and Stefan, who is a character we meet in a novella from the first season, who is a TK Psy who is living in an underwater research center with a human that he has mated. And because they are both mated to humans, what they surmise from this is that the Psy-Net needs connections to non-Psy members for it to be healthy. That it was not meant to be a closed system. It needs those connections. So even apart from the empathic connections needed, it also needs non-Psy connection. We also have Cooper, who is one of the Snowdancer lieutenants, wheeling and dealing with Pax Marshall to help cut Ming Laban off from key business deals. Pax Marshall is the heir to Hyde Marshall, who was a counselor who was assassinated by Caleb Krychek in the first season. Pax, therefore, is kind of making a move to collaborate with Snowdancer to get one over on Ming. And the idea that Snowdancer has is that if they can make Ming less important to the Psy-Net, they can go ahead and kill him. So he gets rejected when he tries to sign the Trinity Accord. He tries and fails to set up his own European Accord, and that just sort of fizzles out. But this whole thing kind of raises this question about if you can just sort of elbow someone out of the Trinity Accord. And that could be a dangerous precedent. So they all agree that if there are questions about someone who is signing, they can be given a junior status for 5 years in order for them to prove their goodwill. And then the last big item in Allegiance of Honor is that the pup cubs are finally born. These are the children of Mercy and Riley, and are sort of now the living embodiment of the nearly full joining of Dark River and Snowdancer, of kind of two halves of the same whole. They have 2 boy wolves and 1 girl leopard. So we get some time fast forwarding here, I think about a year, 18 months-ish. And we start with Silver Silence. In this book, our main character is Silver Mercant, who is the director of Mnet, and there is an attempted assassination of her as a way to undermine Mnet by the consortium. In, I believe it was Allegiance of Honor, we find out that she and Anthony Krychek are at the top of their to-kill list, so this is their attempt to do it. Initially, they think that it may have been one of the Mercants, because it seemed like such an inside job, and who else would have that kind of close access to her house, because it was basically poisoning some of her food. And so 2 of the people who are checked out are her cousin Ivan, who, as I mentioned, was there with the Ocelot pack about 18 months ago, but also her brother, Arwen, who is an empath, and he has been kind of the secret behind the success of the Mercants, because even under Silence, since he was such a strong empath, he was able to keep their family really tightly cohered and kind of help them keep their hold on some level of emotionality or sanity, basically. So they are both cleared, however, as are all of the Mercants. So it's decided that Silver is going to hide from this assassin who's out to get her by going to live with a nearby pack of bears called the Stonewater Bears. And this is one of Caleb Krychek's allied shifter packs in the Moscow area. And their alpha, Valentin, sorry, I was corrected on the pronunciation of this, Valentin Nikolai. He has had his eye on Silver, so they eventually end up being mated, so that is another Psy bonded to a very powerful alpha. They eventually are able to track down somebody called the Human Patriot, who is a part of the consortium and is also part of this nefarious human, like kind of like the Human Alliance, but like the bad version of it. I believe it was called HAPMA. So they track down the Human Patriot, and Ina Mercant, the head of the Mercant family, interrogates him to uncover the plot. We, side note, find out that she has a minor TK ability to control machinery, a la Dev Santos, and she creates him to be a mole in the consortium and in HAPMA. Caleb Krychek also shares with Bowen Knight that the Psynet needs human connection for the biofeedback to be healthy. Bowen says that the right first step to having that be something that would work is for the Psy to help humans develop shields against them so that they can trust Psy. And the ruling coalition, as a sign of goodwill and as a differentiator between them and the old Psy Council, decide that they will help build those shielding techniques without any specific conditions. The bad version of the Human Alliance, HAPMA, tries to radicalize the main Human Alliance by assassinating Lily Knight, who is Bowen's sister, in order to get Bowen on their side. However, Bowen ends up taking the bullet for her, and at the end of the book, at the end of Silver Silence, he is barely alive, and we don't know what's going to happen with him. So, when we open up Ocean Light, we find out that Bowen has been seconded to the Black Sea Station in the middle of the ocean, both to heal from the bullet, but also because there's a scientist there who has a risky procedure that he is going to undertake in order to try to resolve the broken implants that the Human Alliance leadership all have. While he is there, he meets the woman who ends up being his mate, who is a Black Sea changeling. She's a dolphin named Kaya. And they together uncover a mole. They actually uncover two moles within Black Sea. So both of them have been betraying the pack to the consortium. The first one was specifically paid off to thwart the procedure that they were going to do on Bowen. And that person is able to be mostly, they were broken, they're going to be able to be redeemed. But there's a real jerk who is much more evil and corrupt and has been systematically betraying the Black Sea Pack for money for months and months and months at this point. They were the ones who were helping abduct the pack members and torturing them to get them to help with things. There was also a quasi-mole in the Human Alliance leadership who was helping coordinate the abduction of Black Sea members, but they didn't really know that's what they were doing. So, they were roped into something that they didn't fully understand. Kaya gets kidnapped, and Bowen actually ends up having to call in a personal favor to Caleb to locate her, since she has a distinctive tattoo that is identifiable to a teleporter. And after she is saved, kind of the fix, besides rooting out the moles, is that to keep Black Sea members from being abducted, is that all Black Sea members are going to have a secret tattoo that will keep them from being untraceable by a TK so that they can't keep getting kidnapped. Bowen's implant is fixed so that kind of ticking time bomb is resolved. Okay, and then we move into Wolf Knight. So our hero for this one is Alexei, who is one of the Snowdancer lieutenants, and he discovers an imprisoned E on their land in an old bunker, and her name is Memory. They eventually do end up being mated, despite Alexei believing that he is genetically predisposed to go rogue, and therefore vowing not to take a mate. We find out that Keely from Dark River has been doing a PhD about rogues in changeling packs, and she has identified the key indicators that someone is likely to go rogue, and she is able to confirm that Alexei is at a lower risk despite some of his family history. Memory, the Psy who is found on Snowdancer land, was abducted by a serial killer when she was a little girl, who discovered that her version of empathic ability allows those who are most psychopathic to experience human emotion, and that this can be kind of like a drug to that population. Amara, who is Ashaya Eleni's twin and is a bit of a psychopath herself, agrees to help Memory experiment with the skill, and actually over time we see improvements in her empathy even when the quote-unquote hit from Memory has worn off. Memory's empathy also allows her to identify and track those being impacted by a new issue emerging in the Psy-Net, which is the Scarab Syndrome. It's a kind of virus, and without silence, this virus allows a Psy's power to grow and grow and grow until it basically destroys them. She's also able to clean areas of the Psy-Net that have been infected with that syndrome and help them recover. Patient 0 of Scarab Syndrome is compelled by the sickness to attack the empaths because their influence tamps down the growth of the syndrome. It turns out that this patient 0 is Pax Marshall, who turns himself over to the arrows once he realizes everything that's happening. He keeps blacking out when he's doing these attacks. And by using the amplification effect of his power with his twin sister Theo, is able to heal one of the arrows impacted by his attack as a sign of goodwill. Memory is able to diagnose him as needing to connect with his twin more. So basically, if he has that connection stronger, he should be able to resist Scarab Syndrome. And she's also willing to give him a quote-unquote hit whenever he needs it to help keep him stable. Caleb tells Sahara, though, in this book, that unless something changes, they're going to have to break up the Psy-Net into pieces within the next year because it's getting so unstable. And then also by the end of Wolf Night, the architect is starting to distance herself from the consortium because she feels like its goals ideologically don't align really with hers anymore, and she is wanting more power. So going into... Oh, sorry, I said Wolf Night. It's Wolverine. So then going into Alpha Night, the consortium is attempting to assassinate the head of the Black Edge Pack in Russia, Salenka. She is a female wolf alpha, and they are using this double agent that they think that they have under their control, who is an arrow named Ethan. Basically, they are going to have a red flag, false flag attack on Salenka that he will save her from to get her trust so that he can then, infiltrate later. But then there's also an attempted assassination of them by another person. So they tried to eliminate their double agent. Ethan was basically doing this because he just wanted to see what would happen. He didn't really have a lot of active intent to help the consortium, and he has felt very isolated from the arrows. So he agrees to stop that as soon as he connects with Salenka because they end up having an insta-mating, and so he is fully in with the Black Edge Pack at that point. Both of the assassins are E's, and this was at an E conference, so we just have some confrontation over how difficult all of this changes and how a lot of Psy are really struggling to deal with it. The Scarab Syndrome that got introduced in the previous book is getting to be pervasive. There are specific scarab-based viral attacks on the very fabric of the Psy-Net, and those who have the syndrome are falling into comas, being held at the Echo Station for monitoring, but this is growing to be a more and more serious situation. Ethan has a light-based TK ability, but ultimately we discovered that he is really, his main gifting is as a 9.5 E, but he has a unique designation. After he consults with Memory and Sasha, he thinks he has Scarab Syndrome, and they're like, no dude, you don't, you just have something else going on and you need to build better shields. It's discovered kind of once that gets under control that he is actually able to see and clean the scarab infections. So he is helping contain that. And it's a pretty similar variant of E-ness that Memory has, and it's discovered that they are distantly related and that there are more varieties of E than we had previously thought. The architect is morphing into the the Scarab Queen, and she does have Scarab Syndrome, but she can maintain enough control to find and control other people with the syndrome to build a kind of hive army. She is described as being like a spider and having had previously a big role in government sometime in the past, and she is revealed to have been behind all of these focused scarab attacks that we were seeing in Alpha Night. So then for Last Guard, we find out that Ivan Mercant is relocating to San Francisco to take over from Kanto Mercant, who is relocating to Moscow to be closer to Silver. He's doing that because he eventually is going to be her right hand when she takes over being the matriarch of the Mercants. Kanto is a cardinal telepath, but he is also a hub anchor, so kind of a dual cardinal, but being a cardinal anchor isn't quite like being a cardinal in the main part of the Psy-Net. But basically, Kanto is a silent power for the Mercants. And through him and our other main character, we learn a lot more about what it means to be an anchor in the Psy-Net. So if you're going to use your anchor powers, you have to go into the substrate of the Psy-Net, which you can think of as sort of like maybe the veins or tendons of the Psy-Net. So if you think of all these deep cuts that have been described in past books where Caleb and Aiden are repairing those cuts, you can almost think of that as being like the skin that they're repairing. But you would have to have an anchor, and they just haven't been aware of it, having an anchor kind of come in behind them to repair the underlying kind of tendons or veins of the Psy-Net. Anchors are born with profoundly strong shields. They would have to be able to withstand all of the activity of the Psy-Net. But they are also prone to go mad because they are so tied in with the sort of state of the Psy-Net that it can affect their mental stability, and they are also more likely to get a physical disability or sickness because, again, of the connection to the Psy-Net. And an example of somebody who was a hub anchor who went mad was our good old pal Enrique from all the way back in book 1. So then our other main character is Payal Rao, who is the head of the powerful Rao Corporation in India. She is a cardinal TK, and she is also a hub anchor. Kanto reaches out to her because he is forming a kind of like anchor union, an anchor collective. He has a unique ability to track other anchors, and he is able to identify that there are not enough anchors left to support the Psy-Net, which is a big part of why it is failing. The anchors have too much territory, and they're working too long, past their peak strength. And in addition to that, there's just not as many of them because since they are more likely to have some sort of physical disability or sickness, they were more likely to be essentially euthanized as children. Love that. Not grim at all, that statement. The anchors do determine that they're going to kind of unionize and form a collective, and they're going to put a seat on the ruling coalition. They nominate Payal to be the one to do that because she is already so visible as a powerful business person, so she is going to be their representative. They tell Caleb that his plan to break off pieces of the Psy-Net is not going to work because it would still be attached at the substrate level, so they would have to... The plan as he has it currently constituted is not going to work, but they're going to work with him on it. They do agree to do a mass movement of minds from one area of the Psy-Net to another to kind of balance out the load better. To be able to do this, they have to get access to this ancient Psy Council vault to find out how to do it, and ultimately they are successful in doing this, which is going to buy a little bit more time in the Psy-Net. They've also observed that there are all these weeds, they think they're weeds anyway, that are growing in the substrate. It turns out that this is actually a fibrous connection that allows an anchor's territory to grow by connecting them to the other anchors in the substrate. And they are able to discover this when Sophia Russo is able to talk to the Netmind about what they need to do to help the anchors. And then finally, at the end of Last Guard, we find out that the Scarab Queen is trying to find a way to abandon her body. She's been using her minions as these little like spider babies to extend her reach, and we end the book with her deciding to break off an island on her own, even though we just found out that that's maybe not the best idea from the anchors. So I do want to be clear, because of the timing of when this particular recap is coming out, I am about to give you full spoilers for the macro plot of Storm Echo, which has only just come out yesterday. So if you have not gotten to listen to Storm Echo yet, or to read Storm Echo yet, pause here. But I wanted to include this so that when the next book comes out, it's a part of it. So warning, 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 we're about to talk about the macro plot of Storm Echo. Okay, so when the Scarab Queen breaks away, Ivan Mercant is in the street kind of in the area where she is doing that, and he is able to use his own version of his kind of spider-like abilities to grab people from falling into that island that she's breaking off. Caleb realizes that this is basically a chance to see what happens with a part of the Psy-Net broken away, and he wants to see what could be done. Basically this could be a test to see what could be done if the Psy-Net keeps disintegrating. Ivan helps Lay, the missing healer from Sky Elm that we talked about back in Allegiance of Honor, reunite with the remaining members of her pack in Dark River. They actually already have a version of a mating bond that was established when they first met each other 18 months earlier. And after he helps her reunite with them, he tries to go back to the island to help people. He, though, almost gets sucked into the Scarab Queen's kind of thrall on that island, but Lay finds him, and she is able to use her physical touch to pull him back from that point, even though his powers are very drained at that point. So Ivan thinks that his power is just to drain other people dry of their psychic abilities. It's a kind of telepathy. And because his shields are failing, he's afraid that he's going to become essentially terminally destructive to everyone around him. But actually, the way I would describe his psychic power is basically he has an alpha's heart power, is how I would describe it, where he is able to create a psychic network with a healthy center and other minds in it and feeding off of it. So he's able to kind of pull other minds to himself. Similarly to the Scarab Queen. Because Ivan is the only person who is able to go to and from the island from the Psy-Net, Caleb asks him to go back and see if he can free some of the minds, particularly some of the anchors who were pulled into the island. Both Ivan and Lay agree to go back in once he's back to his full power, and this happens after he ends up accepting their mating bond. So using his powers, he is able to cut the cords from the Queen covertly and pull the people she captured into his own kind of web. So those who had Scarab Syndrome, who were in that network, start waking up from the comas that they were in. And as a part of cutting those cords, he fatally wounds the Queen's body. And in the real world, she goes into a full bodily shutdown and is trying to focus all of her energy into keeping her brain alive. It is discovered, so we know that Ivan is not a blood mercant. He was an adopted mercant. And it's discovered that Ivan's mother was actually the disappeared older sister of Shoshana Scott, from whom he gets these spider-like powers, and it's revealed that she is indeed the architect / the queen of the scarabs. Outwardly, there's a public release that she has passed and that her daughter Auden Scott has taken over the family, but on the last page, it is revealed that Shoshana's brain has indeed survived, even though her body is essentially broken beyond repair. So, this new island around Ivan is going to be a test of what a segment of the Psy-Net with changeling, human, and Psy presences all coexisting together, what that will be like. Because since he is mated to Lay, who is in the Dark River pack, there is changeling presence. Lay is part human, and there are also humans within the Dark River pack. So, there are all three races kind of coexisting in this little test site. So we are going to see what happens with this test site as the Psy-Net continues to deteriorate. And it should also be noted that the Mercants and Dark River are now allies, since Ivan is mated to one of their junior healers, and he and she are living on Dark River land. So I think that is the macro plot summary of Season 2 of Psy-Changeling, the Trinity Accord books, at least through Storm Echo. I know I missed a lot of things, but hopefully that's a good overview or summary of some of the key things that we need to remember for the macro plot as we go forward. So I hope that that was helpful. And with that, I think that is all of our bonus content for Psy-Changeling. I'll put up a little announcement when I have a schedule of when we're going to fully start season 2. I'm starting the preparation reading for that, so look for an announcement sometime here in the near future. But I hope you enjoyed this little bonus. So if you were enjoying the podcast, please do take a minute to rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to check these episodes out on YouTube, I do have a playlist on my channel, Books Like Whoa, and you can follow me at Books Like Whoa pretty much everywhere. So I think that will do it for me for now. I will catch you guys soon for season 2, and I hope you are having a great day. Bye!